Welcome to another episode of Techies the Talk. We had a prior episode where we talked a little bit about Toastmasters and how we met and our journey through Toastmasters. Today, we're going to talk about a big part of Toastmasters, which is the evaluations or the immediate feedback that is provided from Toastmasters and our experiences with it and the way that we do our evaluations for feedback. As a part of that, we also will be talking about how we use active listening so that we can provide that feedback. And I'm going to turn it over to Neha. Neha, do you want to tell us about your experiences with evaluations and how you give them?
Walk a little bit back. When I started Toastmasters, I was very scared. English is not my first language at all. So when I visited the club for the very first time, seeing these speakers talking fluently, so confident. And then I think what was very surprising for me was you getting immediate feedback. Like you people giving speeches, and I was enamored by it. But the part of the meeting that I didn't even know existed in Toastmasters was that you get feedback immediately for the speech that you've just given. And that was very new for me. I didn't even know that that's how you improve as a Toastmaster, because this feedback is written. Like your person is going to give you a feedback that you go back and read it. So it was very novel idea for me where somebody's immediately giving you feedback. I was very happy when I heard it for the first time because they tell all the good things you have done. It's a nice feeling. Oh, you did this well. And then they give you recommendation. But as a beginner, I was very, very happy that they're telling me, okay, the things that I did well. So uh, it was something new. I had never seen something like this where you get this feedback immediately. It scared me a bit because I was like, oh my God, what if they say I'm not good? What happens then? Like if they recognize how bad I am at public speaking, because like I said, English not my first language. What if they tell me that I'm not good enough? Well, then what? I think that's where my mentors came into and they, yes, improve with their feedback. Like, take the good things from them, take what you think you can improve upon, and at one thing at a time. You don't have to do everything that they say. Like, when I started, I didn't know how to use my hands. I didn't know how to look at people and talk. Because when I started, I was using my notes. Like, I used to have my notes up there and used to read sometimes. And I used to get a feedback saying, try not to use the notes. But that's where my mentor came into the picture. Don't worry about it. You're just starting, do one at a time. Maybe just work on your body language. Maybe just work on talking to the audience, like looking at them. Not using the notes will come in time. But just gave me a very, very, very good piece of advice when I started. They said this feedback that you receive is an opinion. It's not the all and end all. So take good you can out of it and you can let it go. Second important advice that my mentors gave me, do not take it personally. It is nothing to do with you as a person. They are talking about giving feedback for your speech, how you deliver that speech. It's nothing to do with you as a person. So early on, my mentors drilled this idea into me. Do not take this feedback personally. That has nothing to do with you as a human. So that was a really, really two pieces of good advice that I got in Toastmasters at a very early stage. I think with time, I have realized that you give feedback to people in different ways. You need to, even as an evaluator, you have to know audience whom you're giving feedback to. And we will talk in length the various techniques that you give feedback. But I didn't know this when I joined Toastmasters. I still remember when I was put in as an evaluator, like 4 or 5 months into Toastmasters. I'm like, how am I going to evaluate a person who has been in Toastmasters for longer than I have been? But that's how you learn. You learn. There is this first step that you have to take. And again, my mentors came into the picture. They gave me some techniques. They said, start with the easier techniques. Even though they're seasoned speaker, don't worry about them being how good they are. Concentrate on how you can help them. That needs to be your goal. Your goal as an evaluator is how can you help them to be a better speaker. So
that you get different kinds of evaluations depending on the experience of the evaluator.
yes, I'd say I'm going to be shamelessly saying that I joined Highway to Excellence Toastmasters Club because evaluators are very experienced. It is an advanced club, but the members in the club have been in Toastmasters for more than 5 to 10 years, and they have competed at a higher level in the evaluation contest, or they have been in big leadership roles where have given speeches and have received feedback. So I would say one of the reasons to join Highway to Excellence Advanced Club of our Toastmasters was because that you get from these experienced Toastmasters is different from a beginner like me who would have just joined Toastmasters, is giving the first evaluation in 4 months and joining Toastmasters. But
I
also,
talked to one of the speakers that spoke as a guest at Highway to Excellence on Thursday night, and he made a comment about the level of evaluations. He's a relatively new Toastmaster and belongs to my other club, and he made a comment about how great it was to get the level of evaluation or feedback. It's not really evaluation so much as the instantaneous feedback. I know that when I first joined Toastmasters, I thought of evaluations kind of like you did when you have a job evaluation. You know, that annual review that everybody dreads, or at least I do. And it's nothing like that at all. Actually, they should have managers learn how to give evaluations in Toastmasters before they do performance evaluations.
I agree. And to your point, we have had previous international speech contest winners come to our club just for that purpose,
Mm-hmm.
just to get the feedback for their speeches before they advance on to regionals. So, what can we say? Our club is too good.
I gave
How
a
about
speech
you?
Thursday night, and I had an evaluation that had very good points of things that I need to work on. And it was basic things, learning to use the stage and to project your voice. Now, granted, we're in a room with Highway to Excellence that makes it very necessary to be able to project your voice. And that's something I have to work on. But my cat does not.
Oh, I thought she agreed.
Does agree, but she doesn't need to worry about projecting her voice. You know, evaluations, I think about where I was when I first started Toastmasters and learning how to give an evaluation. I can think of one particular time, and I was relatively new at giving evaluations, and I was evaluating a gentleman who was a very advanced speaker. And I was really rough on him. And I cringe when I think about it now, because if I had to do it over today after all this almost 20 years experience, I would have done it so much differently. It's all about being positive and what you can learn from it. Because just like the Toastmaster motto, or I think we could consider it the motto, it's a positive learning environment. So we have to take into account that everybody's at a different level and we're all learning. No matter how many years of experience that we have, there's always something. Now, how when you're giving an evaluation, do you use a particular technique? Is there a favorite one that you use?
Yes. I started with the simplest technique that I was taught again by mentors. Like the simplest technique, the sandwich method or the Oreo method, whichever you like, where one positive comment, when I say positive comment, what did you see speaker did well? So start always with a positive. Always that, oh, I love you used the way you used your hands, or I love that you did not use the notes. Just few examples. Start always with something positive you liked about the speaker that they did in the speech. Then suddenly put in a constructive, like, what do you think speaker could have improved? You could have said, like Jill said, do the voice projection. I would prefer if you would have projected your voice so that the people in the back of the room could hear you. Include it with another one good thing that the speaker did. You could say you had a very good eye contact with the audience, or you loved how there was a structure in the speech where it had opening, there was a body, and then there was a conclusion. So you're going to start with one positive, one improvement, and then again, one good thing that the speaker did. That was the evaluation method I started using when I started doing evaluation. That was the only way I went with it because it was the easiest way. Only two things I need to figure out what the speaker did well, just need to figure out one good thing that the speaker can improve on, and you move on to it. I think what I learned over the period of time is the words that you use when you give this feedback. Whether while you're talking about positive and giving things to improve, the words you need to use. You can't just say, hey, you did this bad. Don't start with, whenever you're saying with the improvements, oh, you didn't get the, now you need to look at the audience. It's very important the words that you choose when you give your feedback. Like you said, it's a positive learning environment. Be very careful with the words that you're choosing. So that was my sandwich method. Always went to the sandwich method. I think I still do that. And then sometimes now being with Highway to Excellence, I go to the 3-point method. 3 things I liked and 3 things I want them to improve upon. Those are the 2 methods that I stick to. I don't try to go beyond those 2. So what do you use?
I don't know that I have a particular method that I use. I probably used the sandwich method when I first started, but now I'm a little less structured, I guess is the word, in how I give my feedback. I do start out with a positive. I usually say something positive about the way they spoke, or maybe even something about what they said in their speech to relate to them. Now, when you're giving evaluations and when you're giving feedback, it's not about the topic itself. You may or may not agree with whatever is being said, and some of the speeches are actually intended to be antagonistic. So, like I said, your opinion may not match the speaker's opinion. And it's not about that. It's about the way that they give the information. And so I try to do that. And because, like in Highway to Excellence, we have some very experienced speakers, it's hard to come up with things to give them feedback on to work on. And so sometimes it really challenges me to think outside the box to give that one thing for them to work on. Now, Thursday night, we were listening to a gentleman with Highway to Excellence talking about evaluations and the way that he gives them now. There's a structure that Toastmasters recommends, which is, what did you find that was good? What did you find that needs to be worked on? And what do you challenge the person on? Well, Alan recommended talking about how the speech made you feel. How does it make me feel? I feel this. I've heard other speakers saw this, I feel this, and I heard this. So there are 3 points to the speech. An evaluation is a speech. It's just a shorter speech, and it's off the cuff based on someone else's speech. It is just about helping the person improve and giving them the confidence to get back up there and speak again. Because I don't care how experienced you are, it's not the easiest thing to get up there and speak. It's not easy to even speak in a podcast. And we got feedback from other Toastmasters about our first episode. So hopefully we improved this time.
One thing I have learned with giving feedback, it's a double-edged sword. Like if you're not careful, you may scare somebody who's just joining Toastmasters. I just read a story about this person who just joined Toastmasters, and when he was just giving his very first speech. He had never ever spoken in front of a crowd. He was giving his very first speech, had his notes, and the evaluator gave him a feedback. Oh, you should have notes. And he got so deterred by this feedback that he decided to quit Toastmasters. So, okay, got to be very, very careful. If you're giving us feedback to a beginner, don't go saying don't use notes in their first speech. They are beginners. They are speaking for the very first time in their life in front of an audience.
It depends on the speaker. And no matter whether they're a novice speaker or not, you have to use your best judgment on how to provide that feedback, especially the things to work on. Now, there's this gentleman that I told you about that joined my other club last fall, and he has a natural ability to be able to speak in front of an audience. He works hard at it, and he takes his feedback very seriously. But if I had told him in the first speech not to use notes, he would have strived in the next one not to, and it would have been okay. But the speaker that you have that gets up there that is basically shaking in their boots, and I have seen speakers where they're holding on to the lectern and just shaking. You don't want to say that kind of thing to. And by the way, I have seen those speakers go from shaking like that in just a couple of weeks to having the confidence to stand up there and not hold onto the podium or to the lectern and give a speech with confidence. So that's what Toastmasters does. It gives you that confidence.
Do you
Now,
like
how do you have?
do you like when we give the return feedback? A lot of I don't know, a lot of clubs don't observe that, but Highway to Excellence, our club does, where we give everybody gives feedback. I really like that. It's
Yeah, we have the ability in all the clubs, and not all the clubs do it anymore, to give what we call love notes. I really like this. One of the things that I got in a note from somebody in the meeting Thursday night was about the projection. Could you speak louder? I had a hard time hearing you. And it's something that I have to work on. And it will be something I continue to work on.
I agree they're love notes because I like to hear the positive. Like I like to go back and read all the positive thing they have written about me. Hey, you did this well, you did that well. Sometimes when you're feeling down, those love notes cheer you up. So I love that we get those feedback from every person in the meeting. Um,
But in addition to that, I like getting feedback from people after the meetings. So the speech that I gave on Thursday was all about us doing podcasts. And the people in our club were really excited. And I feed off of that energy. And I think you do too, where people are excited. They want to see us do this. They want us to succeed and they want to help. And in about 5 minutes or so, we're going to have somebody join us from Highway to Excellence to talk about her experiences with Toastmasters and evaluations as well. So Michelle's going to join us in a little bit. Neha, do you have anything that you want to say about evaluations to conclude things?
I wouldn't be the speaker I am without my mentors guiding me how to go about receiving feedback and giving feedback. I would not be an experienced Toastmaster. So I would say giving feedback and receiving feedback both are vital. And like I said, it was a very novice idea when I joined Toastmasters that you get immediate feedback. But it helped me to be a better speaker, and I hope my feedback can help somebody else to become a better speaker.
Well said. Well said. In addition to that, without being able to exercise active listening, which is actually listening to what someone says without trying to form an opinion, we couldn't give good evaluations.
So have our guests join us and here any minute.
That's right. So let's take a pause. And when we come back, Michelle will join us and we'll talk a little bit more about Michelle's experiences with evaluations and Toastmasters in general. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Techies the Talk. We have a guest, Michelle Bays. She is a member of Highway to Excellence, a fellow member with Neha and myself. And I'm going to turn it over to Michelle so she can talk a little bit about herself and her experience with Toastmasters.
Well, thank you so much, ladies, for having me today. I'm very excited to join Techies the Talk. As Jill said, my name is Michelle Bays, and not only am I a member of HTE with these wonderful ladies, but I am also this year and next year's district finance manager. So it's my job to make sure that the district doesn't go broke. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed with that. As far as my Toastmasters journey, I have been a Toastmaster since 2006, which means next year, in 2 years, I'll be coming up on year number 20, which I didn't really see that happening when I first did, but I'm never going to regret a single day that I've been a Toastmaster. I've had the pleasure of interacting with so many wonderful people, and as you can see from my name, since I wasn't sure how I was supposed to do this, I am a distinguished Toastmaster, and I am very proud of that.
As you should be. Michelle, we're talking about evaluations today. Why don't you give us a little bit of give us a little history of evaluations in your life and how they've affected you.
Well, it's funny that you should talk about that. I have the pleasure of talking about evaluations with you guys because I was actually just discussing with somebody earlier in the week why feedback is so important. But not only is feedback important, but how you deliver that feedback is just as important as the feedback you're actually getting. And that is why, to me, that piece of the pie when it comes to Toastmasters is very near and dear to my heart, because getting feedback is one thing. Getting feedback in a positive way where you are encouraged to actually apply it is even more important. And that's where my evaluation journey really has started to evolve. In the very beginning, I probably was the worst person when it came to giving feedback. You did everything great. Everything I saw was so great, so great, so great. I never felt like I could provide feedback to someone more experienced than me because well, they were more experienced than me. So obviously, whatever they were doing it right. Then, as I started to observe other really amazing evaluators, I noticed that it was less about they've been at this a long time or the speaker's really experienced to what does my eye see? What does my ears hear so that I can give my perspective and perhaps just give that speaker a different way of seeing what they're presenting. And so over time, I've been able to feel comfortable with giving feedback to whether it's someone who's new, someone who's been at it for a short period of time, or somebody who has even more than the 18 years of experience that I do when it comes to Toastmasters.
Hey, you evaluated me Thursday night. I have one more year experience than you do. All that's to say is, no matter how much experience you have, there's always something to work on. We're people and we're not perfect, and everybody has a little different perspective on things. Neha,
I have one question for Michelle, which is, how has feedback helped you? I know you're talking about it, how you have given feedback, but when you receive the feedback, how has that helped you in Toastmasters?
I think every single time I get feedback, it inspires me to take it and see how I can apply it. Not only in a future speech per se, at a club level or in competition, but just in my everyday interaction. When I'm at work, I'll take some of the feedback that I talk too much with my hands, for instance, and I'm probably doing that now. And realizing that that's something that might become distracting from the message that I'm trying to give, I will be more mindful and take that feedback and really just kind of incorporate it in my day-to-day activities and interactions, whether it be Toastmasters driven or personally driven or professionally driven. Other things that I've learned from feedback is opportunities to use my vocal variety to my advantage. Getting that kind of feedback and knowing that sometimes a little bit of oomph in there will get people to pay attention, and especially for the key things that you want to make sure they take away from your interaction with them.
Very well said. I think we lost Jill. She should come back. So we'll wait for her to come. But I do have some one more question for you, which you can
Sure.
definitely say no if you don't want to share the experience. Have you ever received a negative feedback?
I'd be lying if I said no. Not every feedback is necessarily intentionally presented in an unpositive way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, because it's about hearing what they have to say and not necessarily the delivery in which they provided it. I have become cognizant over the years that everybody's got a different delivery style, and taking that to heart and really kind of, okay, maybe I wasn't conveying the message the way I wanted to. And that's the feedback that I'm getting, right? Whether it's done in a negative way, or it's, you really could have done this better, or you really should have worked on this, or I can absolutely tell that you didn't practice this. Like, I did practice it, but I tried to do a different thing and it just didn't work out that way. Because that's happened. It's like, I remember some feedback that I received that I wasn't really connecting with the audience. And I thought I really was trying really hard to make that connection, but it felt more to my evaluator that I was just preempting. I wasn't connecting. And I was like, okay, I'm not really seeing that. But as I start to reflect on it, I'm like, okay, I can kind of take that and maybe try it again with a different audience and see how I can work with that. So even though it's negative or it's not necessarily done in the most positive frame, I still want to take that feedback and and take off the layers and really kind of hone in on what they were trying to say and what I was trying to do. And then maybe it didn't match up. And that's the great thing about Toastmasters is it is like a laboratory. You have an opportunity, whether you come back to your home club or you give it at another club, and you'll get a different perspective. One, because you've heard what was told to you before, and you can kind of keep that in the back of your head as you're trying to figure out what it is that you're really trying to bring to the surface when you're giving that presentation.
So I have one last question that I asked Jill in our first episode.
Mhm.
Why have you stayed in Toastmasters for so long?
I keep learning. Every single time I have an opportunity, whether it's to come to my home club and see what's on the agenda, it's always different. It never stops giving you an opportunity to add another nugget to your basket. And I know they say, once you're in Toastmasters, you stay in Toastmasters, and if you know, you know. But for me, that learning journey, hunger and desire to see something from a plethora of different Toastmasters, whether it's their day one, and I can relate because I've had my day one, whether it's my day 201, 2001, etc., I'm still learning something because every single experience is different. Even if there are elements of duplication, they're not duplicated the same way. And that's what keeps me coming back.
Do you have any words for our audience about feedback or in general for Toastmasters?
Embrace the evaluations. Even if it's not quite what you want to hear, take it, digest it, and then reflect on it later on. In the moment, it might not be what you're feeling, either because you didn't deliver the speech the way you wanted to, or they just didn't get you, and that's okay. But give yourself a little time and dive into that feedback and really kind of see, okay, well, maybe I have a shot of trying it a different way, or thank you so much for that perspective, but I'm still going to keep doing it this way. But I will warn you that if you choose that path and you keep hearing that same feedback from other people, just maybe phrased in a different way, you might want to give that feedback consideration and think about it from a different perspective. But enjoy your journey and take in all the feedback that you can get and enjoy all the feedback that you get to give in return.
Thank you, Michelle, for joining us. I'm so happy that we have another perspective from our club. I am so thankful for giving your time to our podcast. I hope to see you again, definitely.
Yeah.
I think our second host is gone. I don't know where she's gone.
One
But
of the cats decided that they were going to swipe on the keyboard, and Daphne was like, this podcast is about me. You need to focus on me. Michelle doesn't know what she's talking about because the feedback needs to be all about me. As a
that's
cat
it.
person, I totally get it.
Well, I am a dog person and I have both of them just lying down there looking at me. What are you doing? Well, I will let you know after this episode what I'm doing. But thank you so much for joining us. And I hope to see you again. Back again
Absolutely.
for
I
a
would
future
enjoy
episode.
getting another invitation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And to all our audience back there, please come back for episode 3. We are available on Spotify and
Michelle.
on YouTube. We would be glad to receive your feedback on our episode 2 about giving feedback. Thank you, Michelle, so much. It was a real pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you.
Bye.